Wisdom. It's an incredibly valuable asset. Some would say more precious than gold. It's attractive, appealing, admirable. Conversely, a lack of wisdom is the basis of immaturity, blind spots, and bad decisions. Wisdom. It can be gained over time, but it can't be rushed. But wisdom can be shared. That's precisely what we are here to do right now. Today, we are here to hack wisdom, to distill it, to understand it, and to process it. Why? To get better at life. Welcome to the main thing. This is your new 9-minute podcast. I'm your host, Skip Lineberg, and I've set out to interview the wisest people I know. We'll see what we can learn from each one when they're faced with an incredibly difficult, soul-piercing question. Welcome to the Main Thing Podcast. I'm your host, Skip Lineberg, and I'm thrilled to bring you a really special episode. I, along with millions of business professionals around the world, discovered Tom Peters in the early 1980s with his breakout best-selling book, In Search of Excellence. I was captivated by Tom's fresh way of looking at companies, cultures, and customers. You'll not only hear how I answered Tom's own soul-piercing question, you will also hear about his terrific new book, Tom Peters' Compact Guide to Excellence. Now, a bit more about Tom Peters. Tom was born and raised in Maryland. He studied civil engineering at Cornell University and served in the U.S. Navy. After his military service, Tom moved to California and earned his MBA and PhD from Stanford University. He began his distinguished career in business consulting with the firm McKinsey & Associates. In 1981, Tom founded the Skunk Works, Inc., the Palo Alto Consulting Center, and the Tom Peters Company. He has written more than 20 books over the course of his career. Tom and his wife, Susan Sargent, who's a tapestry weaver, textile entrepreneur, community and climate change activist, after residing many years in Vermont, now live near Buzzards Bay in South Dartmouth, Massachusetts. In this special episode of the Main Thing Podcast, you'll hear what Tom is still passionate about fixing, reforming, and overcoming. We touch on his legacy, and of course you will hear Tom reveal his very own Main Thing wisdom lesson. Strap in and get ready in this power-packed episode, overflowing with tons of Tom's wisdom. You will discover why Tom Peters is one of the wisest people I know. Tom Peters, welcome to the Main Thing Podcast. It's so great to have you on this morning.
Well, it is my great pleasure to be here.
I want to take you back to the small, charming New England town of Bennington, Vermont. About this time of year in 2004, I had the great fortune of being invited to your Reimagine Summit. Yeah.
I was in Vermont for over 20 years.
Yeah, and you had a new book coming out called Reimagine. What I recall is that you had about 35 of us there. And what you were doing, what you told us you were doing, was you were refining your pitch deck. You were getting ready to take this show, this message platform on the road, this book, and you were going to make a ton of presentations. And you asked us to give you some feedback on your slides and your pitch and your points of emphasis, which was so much fun to do. And what a treat to be a part of, because it was a great event, surrounded by great people in a great place.
Well, I'll tell you, not a sequel. I don't remember what it was before or after. But you trigger it with that. You know, what you're doing on your podcast, what I've been doing for the last 40 years, is a blinding flash of the obvious. Be pleasant, be nice, and people will literally, not figuratively, kill themselves for you, whether it's on the shop floor or when the nozzle gets stuck in the gas tank at the gas station.
That event shaped my life in a couple of ways, and I want to isolate one of them. Because you did on the open, everyone traveled in, of course, and we arrived. And then by the time everyone got there, you had a nice pre-event the evening before. And I want to say we were in upstairs of a town hall or a library, but it was just this charming New England town, and the snow's falling. It's winter in this quaint, old historic building that was probably 300 years old. And we went upstairs for a glass of wine, some cheese cubes, and we're mixing and mingling. And you called us all together in this big great room up there. You had us form a circle, and you welcomed us, and you said, Folks, we're going to get to know each other, and I'm going to give you an icebreaker question that I think will reveal to everyone here what you're about and how they can relate to you. And so, my butterflies are churning. I'm like, oh my gosh, what's this going to be? I'm not prepared for this. So you said you went around the room with your finger and you pointed to everyone around the circle, and you said, I'm going to ask you in just a minute, we're going to go around the circle. What did God put you here on this earth to do? What did God drop you into earth to do? And I'm really nervous because Tom, I aged probably 33. I hadn't thought much about that. I hadn't been very mindful about my purpose, but that's what you were getting at, was what is your purpose? And so fortunately, Tom, you started with someone way across the circle. So I had some time to think, and I'm sitting there, my brain's churning and grinding. What did God put me here to do? And all of us could say 10 things, but what is the one thing that God put us here to do? And so, Tom, that was the first day that I ever said, God put me here to be a teacher, and not a classroom teacher, but in everything I do, I teach. I mentor young professionals. I coach sports. I parent my kids. At work, I excel at training. I'm a teacher. And the light bulb went off, and I had clarity of my purpose that day in Vermont in 2004. And I've carried that forward ever since that time, because it's truth. You cut me open, and that's my purpose. And I wanted to say thank you for presenting that question. That helped me.
I'm flattered out of my mind, and I wish a lot more people looked at the world the way you do in that regard.
Tom, you have a fabulous new book out. Your team sent me an advanced copy, Tom Peters' Compact Guide to Excellence, and it is a small book packed with tons of power and impact. I want to talk about your book, if we could. First of all, cool packaging. I'm not surprised, because I've followed you, and I was part of Reimagine, where packaging matters and design matters. And so the box is a thing of art itself, but then the book is small, easy to handle, and bite-sized lessons, but don't underestimate. They're very powerful. You describe it as a curated collection of powerful thoughts from others. And so that was surprising to me, but it's incredibly high impact how others have taken some of your themes throughout your career that you introduced us to in Search of Excellence, and they've lived into those, and they've carried those out, and they've taken them and expanded some of those themes. What prompted you to write this? I know you had a burning passion for some reason to publish this book. Take us inside of the impetus and the passion for this book.
Well, the book it's look and feel and taste and touch and smell.
Yeah.
And it is some of these quotes, mainly quotes that don't have too many words. And Nancye presented them in beautiful and memorable ways. And, we had just the first book I worked on with her was called Excellence Now, Extreme Humanism. That was a year or so before.
Yeah.
And I don't know whether it was Nancye or whether it was me, but we were kind of going through it, thumbing through it, and looking at the highlights pages. And either she said to me or I said to her, I'd like to think it was the latter, but probably the former. These highlights are the last 45 years of my life. And these are the boiled down expression of the things that I care about and that I think are important. Is there any way, in an interesting way, we could turn that into something? And it was certainly not a goal to write another book, and particularly since the prior book was only a year old. And so Nancye and one of her colleagues got together, worked on it, did a draft. I don't know the degree to which it's a family gathering, but I went apeshit when I saw the thing.
I bet.
The new book is a slideshow, except it's done far more beautifully. But I've always said that. Don't listen to me. Who cares what Tom Peters says? Let's listen to Roddick. Let's listen to Richard Branson. Let's listen to, despite their recent problems, my old buddy Herb Kelleher, who started Southwest Airlines, or his president, Colleen Barrett. Let's listen to Colleen or Herb or Anita or Richard. not Tom Peters. I'm irrelevant, but listen to them because they've done it.
Yeah, right. That transmits totally. Tom Peters, what's the main thing you've learned in your lifetime so far?
As I always do, I'm going to answer with a quote. The main thing I have learned in my lifetime is perfectly captured by the American statesman Henry Clay.
Okay.
Courtesies of a small and trivial character are the ones which strike deepest in the grateful and appreciating heart. And that is the main thing that I have learned.
Oh, I love it. I love it. Tom, would you give us a glimpse of how you try to live that out? How do you apply that in your daily life?
I went into the pharmacy. If you're my age, you're always going into the pharmacy. And on the way out in the parking lot, some guy damn near ran me over in a Beamer. And, after he had run past me, the guy next to him, or the other fellow in the parking lot, rolls his window down at his old pickup. And he said, he just shook his head. And I said, yeah, Beamer time. The research says Beamer and Mercedes people are the rudest people on the road. So, and this guy, then I had a Navy baseball hat on, and he said, thanks for your service. And I said, well, let me tell you why I wear that. I said, I wear that hat. I said, yeah, my service was good and so on. God bless me. Because if you wear a hat that says United States Navy Seabee Vietnam veteran, you couldn't get a speeding ticket if you tried. I said, more than 20 miles over the speed limit, maybe yes, but not. The guy I thought was going to pee his pants. And he said, do you know what I was in my regular life? I said, I have no idea. I said, I was a cop.
Oh my gosh.
Said, you're absolutely right. But the reason for giving you that complex response is that kind of interaction. I think it was my mom, comes naturally to me, and I love people, and I love chatting with people, and I love laughing with people. CEO of a biotech company who said our secret to success is we only hire nice people.
Yes.
And what's powerful about that to me is A, what he said, but B, this is a biotech company where schmucks like you and me wouldn't even understand the names of the degrees that people have. And he said that. He said, you wouldn't even understand half the names of the degrees. But what I discovered was that no matter how obscure the degree was, there are a lot of people who have it. Hire the nice ones.
There we go. Henry Clay, courtesies of a small and trivial character. The small courtesies, the small nice gestures, they make a huge difference. Tom, I love your main thing that you've shared. Thank you. I'd like to end just talking about legacy. I look at your work and I admitted I'm a fan. I'm a huge fan. I've read every book you've written. I have had the blessing to interact with you twice now. I see the impact of how you changed leadership, how you changed the conversation of what we care about in corporations. But I want to hear from you. What mark have you made? What is your legacy? And also, as you think about that, Tom, do you feel like you did enough? I'm just curious at 78, with all the success that you've had, how do you feel on the inside? Do you feel like I've made an impact, or do you feel like I didn't do as much as I wanted to?
I was 78 relative to that story. I just had my 80th birthday, actually. So let's get our numbers straight.
For the record. Okay.
I hope my arrogance isn't infinite. I did say, and this is, I'm sure, being unfair, I said, let me tell you the difference between me and Tony Robbins. When Tony Robbins walks out of an auditorium with 1,000 people after an hour speech, he expects to have changed 1,000 lives. If I walk out of an auditorium speaking to 1,000 people, and if 2 people walk out of that room really determined to do something significantly different, I've had a hell of a good day. So on the one hand, I think I've made a difference with onesies and twosies. On the other hand, The world is an effing mess right now. Forget the politics per se. You don't have to think about the politics. There's hatred, there's loathing, there's whatever. And if that's here, that means I screwed up and didn't get done what I wanted to get done. So, you make a little difference. And if God is kind enough to give you an opportunity to do that, you're better off than 99% of the population. So you do what you can.
Thank you for your time this morning. Thank you for coming on to share your wisdom and for the terrific new book that you wrote. I wish you continued success.
Well, thank you very much for giving me the opportunity to speak in public, as it were, about things that both of us care about deeply.
Wow, that goes by incredibly fast, doesn't it? Time flies when you're hacking wisdom. I hope you're left wanting more. Sync up with us again next time on The Main Thing for 9 more minutes of wisdom. Let's be honest, it's not easy to ask for help or talk about money. Hey, it's Skip here, and many listeners like you continue to ask me, what do you need to continue to develop and build this show? Well, for context, it takes our team about 15 hours of work to produce each one of these packages of wisdom that we deliver to you in podcast form. Really, what we need is funding to cover our costs. So in response, I formed a site on the Patreon platform where you can elect to become a supporting patron of the Main Thing podcast. Now, there are 3 levels you might consider, ranging from $6 to $27 per month. It's all safe and secure, and you can explore the options at patreon.com/themainthingpodcast. Now, how will we use the funding? Funds provided by you and other patrons will be used to defray the costs of production, promotion, and our recurring technology expenses each month. In short, you will be helping to keep this pipeline of wisdom flowing. Thanks.